What's going on, Sky fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Sky Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Sky related. On today's episode, we got a lot of things to break down. The Chicago Sky have gone 1-1 so far this week with another game upcoming on Friday. We also got to talk about the WNBA Power Rankings. Skyler Diggins launching a new collection with Puma, and also WNBA players. What are they going to do now that it seems like Russia is no longer going to be an option for them? We'll get into all that and some more right after this.
Welcome to Chicago Sky Central, and here's your host, Haize.
All right, WNBA Sky fans, who whatever brought you here, I'm glad you're here on Chicago Sky Central. First up, we got to talk about it, the Power Rankings. You know, I like to lead off every first episode of the week, even though this one is a little bit late with the WNBA Power Rankings. We're now sitting in Wednesday, so we're about halfway through the week, but the Las Vegas Aces have reclaimed the number one spot. Now, ESPN, these are ESPN's Power Rankings, by the way. They do mention how the Commissioner's Cup does not count towards the WNBA standings, but they are counting it towards their Power Rankings. And because the Aces did beat Chicago Sky, it deeply affects their Power Rankings, considering they were the number one and number two teams. They now flip-flop with that. The Las Vegas Aces, they are the number one seed right now after being ranked number two. After being all the way, I think it's down as like number 4, and they climbed themselves back up. They had a strong showing in the week prior to that. So they earned it. After that showing in the Commissioner's Cup, I can't be mad at the Chicago Sky being passed up. Now the Chicago Sky are number 2 in that ranking. They're followed by the Connecticut Sun and the Washington Mystics and the Seattle Storm, rounding out the top 5. The Phoenix Mercury fall right outside the top 5 at being number 6, which they were last week. The Dallas Wings hit a nice swing up, moving up 2 spots after being ranked number 9th, number 7th in this week's Power Rankings. The Minnesota Lynx, they rise up from number 11 to number 8 as well after a strong week for them also. And the Los Angeles Sparks, after losing Liz Cambage, they now sit at number 9 after being ranked number 7 in the previous week. And then to round out the top 10, the Atlanta Dream moving up 2 spots after being moving down 2 spots after being ranked number 8, now being ranked number 10. So that's where everything sits right now in the WNBA Power Rankings. We expect, the Sky off to a 1-1 week so far. We'll see what happens with next week's Power Rankings. The Power Rankings, I just like to talk about them to see where everything measures up in the WNBA currently. Yeah, we all know the Chicago Sky, they went into, they were a 500 team entering the playoffs last season. So it all comes down to what you can do in the playoffs. But outside of that, let's talk about some things outside of basketball. Skyler Diggins-Smith launched a new collection with Puma called Desert Sky. Now, this is a series that has sneakers, a jersey, dress, shorts, and T-shirts. It's all named the Desert Sky collection. This is the first basketball player to really pair with the brand for quite a while. And, you know, in this release, she talked about it's about representation of duality for me. When I got out here and saw that there were mountains and how scenic it was, there was something about the sunrise and sunsets. The colors just caught me. When I think about sunrise, I think about the opportunity and new chapters. When I think about sunset, I think about reflection and contrast. So, you know, shout out to Skyler for being able to get that new line and what that means to her. Shout it out. And it looks good so far from what I've seen from it as well. So hopefully this is a successful pairing between her and between her and Puma. And we see more WNBA figures get more things like this because, again, this helps grow the game. This helps grows awareness, things like that. And hopefully we continue to see that. Now, we're going to move on. WNBA players, considering that they do play overseas in the offseason, with the change in Russia, the UMMC Ekaterinburg, I know I completely murdered that. A lot of players from that got together to take pictures at All-Star Weekend, even players that weren't a part of All-Star Weekend. And, you know, considering what's going on with Brittany Griner, changes to the pay there. So clubs in Russia, it seems like now the teams aren't going to have that as an option for them. And we've talked a lot about how WNBA players do have to go over and play in other countries to really, you know, to get paid what they're worth. And so because of, you know, that going away from WNBA, what league now takes the spot of that? So, you know, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, not to make this political as well, and, you know, the things going on with the relationship between the U.S. and Brittany Griner, with the U.S. and Russia, and then the Brittany Griner situation, it seems like a lot of players are now understanding that they are not going to be going over to Russia to get that offseason money and play over there. So what happens, right? Where will they compete? That is the biggest question here, and presented in that ESPN article as well. And so we'll see. It you know, the travel advisory to Russia at a level 4, the do not travel, all of that plays a part in, it's not going to be the same as it was before, but we'll see. It's as one falls, there's always one that drops. So we'll see. There's French, Spanish, and Turkish leagues that are doing really good. That could be a new destination for these WNBA players. I've said for a long time the WNBA also needs to partner with one of those foreign leagues. So it seems like that one of those are going to be the option for the WNBA players heading into the offseason. I guess we'll all see how it boils down and see where it goes. But there you go. I wanted to talk about that as well. Lastly, before we get into the Chicago Sky games and what happened, Diana Taurasi becomes the first player in WNBA history to have a 30-point game after the age of 40. She joins Michael Jordan and Dirk Nowitzki as being the only basketball players to score 30 points or more in a game after being the age of 40. That is a huge compliment to Diana Taurasi, who's just a great just a great player overall and a great person to represent the game itself, not just the WNBA, but the game of basketball. And shout out to her for making that huge accomplishment because, we want to do this. I've said this before. Yes, this is the number one, or what I hope to be the number one spot for everything Chicago Sky related and for Chicago Sky. But I also want to be representative of the WNBA and talk about accomplishments overall in the W as well, because Lord knows it needs to be and it should be talked about a little bit more. And on my little platform here, if I can do anything to raise the awareness of the game, guess what? I'm going to do it. But let's go ahead and move on to covering our Chicago Sky, who had their first game this week against the Connecticut Sun that went into overtime. This was a fun game. They ended up winning this game 95-92. Still without Candace Parker in this game. Every starter scored in double digits. We also had big games from Rebecca Gardner off the bench as well. And this is one of those games to me in which the Chicago Sky won that first quarter handily. Won the first quarter 27-17. Then ended up losing the second quarter 18-27 and the third quarter, but came back to tie it in the fourth quarter to send the game into overtime, which they won 11-8. Quickly and Kalia Copper in this game hitting big shots in overtime to help seal the victory. Copper in this game, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists in this game, just filling up the stat sheet. Vandersloot in this game, 16 points, 12 assists, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. Really stuffing the stat sheet from her. Quickly as well, like I said, hitting big shots. She was 2 for 3 from the three-point range, 13 points from her and 5 assists. And Azeroth Stevens, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 3 blocks. She balled out in this game. So this was one of those games where the Chicago Sky's depth absolutely helped them win this game. After big games from the Connecticut players on the Connecticut Sun, DeWanna Bonner in this game, 23 points in this one, really balling out in her own right in this game. Elisa Thomas in this game with chipping in another over 20 points with 22 points from her. This was a game that was just fun and exciting to watch from two teams that are definitely going to be playoff teams and definitely have winning records as well. This is a playoff type atmosphere, and this is what we're seeing as the WNBA season goes on. A lot of these games are going to have playoff type atmosphere, and this was one of those games. The Chicago Sky in this one, 19 turnovers, unfortunately, losing that battle 19-15. They shot the ball overall well from the field at 55.2% from the field, but had a very off 3-point shooting night for 5 of 14, which isn't terrible, but it's not like how we're used to seeing them shoot. For 35% overall shooting from the field, the Connecticut Sun, 42% from the field. Both teams shot overall very well. This was one of those games that the defensive intensity needed to kick in when it needed to. And the Chicago Sky, with that depth, and I've seen somebody tweet this out before. Is Azeroth Stevens and Rebecca Gardner going to be in consideration for 6th Woman of the Year? It possibly could be. I wouldn't be mad at either one of them. Now, I do think that Rebecca Gardner hasn't been as consistent as what I would like her, but the games that she shows up in, and she's been more consistent as of late, she balls out. And being a rookie coming in with that poise, I've talked about it before, her length, her athleticism, the way she moves even when she doesn't have the ball, and her off-the-ball defense just makes everything better for the Chicago Sky. This was one of those games that just watching it was exciting, it was thrilling, and this is what makes people WNBA fans. This is playoff atmosphere basketball in the W, and it felt great to watch this. It just felt great and the Chicago Sky able to pull it out again, missing their veteran in Candace Parker and still being able to put up big wins without Candace Parker being out. She's out for a non-COVID related illness, so we'll see how much longer she's out, how many more games she missed, because she did miss the other game that we're going to talk about and get into now. I'm sorry, she did not miss the game. She came back in that game, and this is the Chicago Sky versus the Dallas Wings. They actually lose this game 84-78. 8. Unfortunately, listen, sometimes, and the Dallas Wings, as I talked about in the power rankings, moving up in the power rankings, they are coming on now late, trying to get into that playoff spot and secure a playoff spot, which is not out of the realm of possibility for them at all. This is one of those games as well, watching it, that it was just, you always felt like the Sky were gonna still win this game. At least I did. I always felt like the Sky were in contention to still win this game. I never felt like it was out of it completely. But the Dallas Wings, like I said, fighting for that playoff spot there. Right now, they are the 6th seed, coming in the fourth quarter. In the third quarter, outscoring the Chicago Sky 22-17. They're also in the second quarter, 24-20, outscoring the Chicago Sky. The Chicago Sky wins the first and fourth quarters, but it's not enough in this game to bring it home. And hey, you don't win all of them. And unfortunately, this was one of those games. Tierra McCowan in this game, balling out as well. 20 points from her in this game, 12 rebounds, 3 assists from her. She balled out. Marina Mabry as well, another 20-point game, 26 points from her, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. She balled out in this game. Now the Chicago Sky on the flip side, Candace Parker's first game back from her illness, 22 minutes, 4 for 8 shooting from the field, 0 for 3 from three-point range, only 8 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 steal from her. It just didn't feel like she had it in this game. Emma Miesemann, 14 points, quickly 14 points in this game. Kalia Copper in this game as well, 7 of 13 for 19 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists. And then Azurá Stevens, again, off the bench, 14 points in 23 minutes off the bench. And she was the only bench player to score in this game. Now, while Rebecca Gardner, Alamand as well, giving us some solid minutes defensively, just did not hit the ball or shoot the ball very effectively. This game, 29 of 61 overall from the field for 47% shooting, which isn't terrible. 6 for 21 from three-point range for the Chicago Sky, 28%, which is good for 28% on this one. It just didn't. This wasn't the Chicago Sky night, unfortunately. That's just what it boils down to. The Chicago Sky did not have enough to win this game. The Dallas Wings came in with more energy down the stretch, and even though the Chicago Sky seemed like they may mount a comeback in that fourth quarter, it just was not enough to overcome that deficit, and that's where we sit at. So far, 1-1 for the week, with another game coming up Friday. I believe, let's check. They got a game Friday, which is going to be on NBA TV, August 5th against the Washington Mystics, so be on the lookout for that game. That should be a fun game in Chicago as well. Another playoff atmosphere type game for the Chicago Sky, and I know the WNBA doesn't have a lot of teams, so a lot of the teams do make the playoffs, but still, playoff atmosphere type game coming up for the Chicago Sky against the Mystics. So to end the season for the Chicago Sky, they still have games against the Connecticut Sun, Seattle Storm, Las Vegas Aces, which is going to be a revenge game, and I hope the Chicago Sky do win that heading into the playoffs, and then against the Phoenix Mercury as well. And then we head into the playoffs at the end of the month, as we're going to kick in our playoff coverage as well. Be on the lookout. I'm going to expect to do live streams after every playoff game for sure. We're going to do those live post-game shows to really support the W and support this team as well, to help lift them up. But I'm expecting a very good playoff run from the Chicago Sky, and hopefully it ends with the Chicago Sky hosting the WNBA trophy again and being crowned champions once again, because we know the talent, the depth that this team has. And yeah, they've hit some hard patches here in a while, but I do think that they're going to face those and be able to overcome them and be even better heading into the playoffs this upcoming playoff season for the Chicago Sky. I know I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys probably are too. And this is the place to be if you want to see that coverage for the Chicago Sky. But that is it from us for today. Make sure you're following the show at Chicago Sky Pod on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoSkyCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave us a text and or voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for being at the number one place for everything Chicago Sky related. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.